A new documentary screening at the Forest City Film Festival is telling the story of a London woman who had a really difficult life. It's called Cheryl, and it tells the story of Cheryl Sheldon, who dealt with trauma and addiction and homelessness in her life, and it ended in an alleged femicide. Nigel Stuckey made the film, and he's in our studio to tell us about it. Nigel, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's really good to have you. So what is it that drew you to Cheryl's story?
Well, I met Cheryl Sheldon when I was filming my first documentary, and I actually met her with the man who a year later would be accused with her death. I interviewed her in Victoria Park, the two of them, and then I met her a few times downtown, pushing a cart, and then she disappeared. She broke her leg or her hip, ended up in the hospital, and then ended up in housing. And then later I heard about her death and reached out to her brother, Mark Sheldon, who's going to be zooming in today for the Q&A after the documentary and talking. And then I just felt it was such an important story to tell.
And as you mentioned there, you met Cheryl and you interviewed her. What was she like?
Cheryl was struggling. I mean, on that day, it was not an inclement day. It was a sunny day in the park. She was having some chili, but she spoke about her struggles, and she spoke about her difficulties in housing and her difficulties with drugs and a bunch of other topics.
And it keeps coming back to housing and drugs. We hear these stories so often in our community. How was she interacting with that part of it?
So everything's interconnected, all of these issues. This film really does focus on Cheryl, but it also deals with three big issues that I think are just so important that women on the street face. One of those is sexual vulnerability. Many women on the street are sexually compromised and for survival. And then because of the trauma that they face, the trauma of being in their situation, and also the trauma of having some sexual abuse and being victimized, many turn to crystal meth. And crystal meth also helps women stay awake at night because people are vulnerable at night. You'll see many people who are unhoused end up sleeping on the sidewalk during the day. That's because all night long they're walking the streets because they don't feel safe. And then they'll be in a public place during the day where they are sleeping and they're not getting a lot of sleep. You know, they're not running, 100%.
Sure. Yeah, I've had people tell me similar stories.
Yeah, 100%.
Using crystal meth to walk the streets and stay warm when it's cold, and it's
and then
difficult.
The last issue, and I never intended this to be an issue when I started the documentary, was winter response, and I was interviewing people in such compromised positions. People in London need to be aware that we have women out on the streets in wheelchairs, in walkers, and I have encountered these women in the middle of snowstorms, in inclement weather, in cold weather, minus 14 degrees. And that's just inhumane. I'm sorry. I mean, I walked here this morning. Mm-hmm. It was 4 degrees.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I don't think I would like to sleep outside in 4 degrees.
I walk down Dundas every morning at 4:30 in the morning, about 10 minutes to walk in here to the studio. And it was -2 earlier this week in October, and people were wrapped up in blankets, sleeping in doorways. I counted 7 people on my walk-in a couple of mornings ago, sleeping in the cold.
You know, the Middlesex London Health Unit has publicly stated that -5 is a threshold where it becomes dangerous for people being outdoors. And let's not forget that if you're wet, like if there's freezing rain and it's -2, how vulnerable are you to the wind or to the elements?
Yeah.
Yet once again, we now have a report coming out of the City of London with a winter response with a threshold of -15 for a serious response where there's more people being housed or taken off the street. -15. Last year when I was doing my documentary, there was a few days when I was out -14. In the documentary, I ran into a woman. Mm-hmm. She was unhoused because of a domestic violence situation. She was frantic. She was banging on doors. She was trying all the doors on Dundas Street, trying to get safety. Panicked. -14 and having -15 as a threshold, like I just can't get my head around this. I'd like to see some people in politics come and spend a night out with me one night when it's -10, 11, or 12 and see what that feels like.
I'd like to ask you about how you go about telling these stories in the documentary, because you obviously get into some really raw and difficult moments here. How is that reflected on screen?
Well, I believe in verite, like documentary. I believe that a documentary should bring people where they have not been before. I go out with a camera. I have no idea what I'm going to run into. I walk up to people and talk to them. I mean, I think my policing background has...
Yeah, you're a retired police officer.
I am,
right?
and that gives me the skill set to talk to people compassionately and communicate with people on their level. I use that skill set to, create a bond, and people agree to go on, on camera with me. So what you're seeing is what is happening, right? I have one scene in the film. It's 4:30 in the morning. There's a snowstorm, and there's a woman in a wheelchair trying to get through the snow on London streets, just trying to get to a shelter. This is, again, the City of London now has a new plan in place for winter response. That's great.
Yeah.
They've got something.
And they're going to build some small modular
Yep,
homes.
and they're farther ahead than they were before. I mean, in totality, at an extreme weather event, you're looking at about 200 people. There are a lot of people in the city who are unhoused, like a lot. But what that report does not address in any way whatsoever is inclement weather. It's triggered specifically by temperatures. So can you imagine if you are a person in a wheelchair, okay, and it's -4, -5, -8, and we're getting 20 centimeters of snow? How in the world are you navigating that life?
I can't imagine that.
No, yet our policy now is that that's okay. That's our policy, because we haven't included anything in this report that has anything to say about inclement weather.
So then, Nigel, you've made the documentary. People are now going to see it. What do you hope happens after?
I've made 2 documentaries now. The first one was Atrocity, and that film, it took a while to get that name. It was a challenging name. People need to know that I was encountering people on London city streets. I would see them at one point walking down the street. 8 months later, I saw that person missing a leg. I said, what's happened? And they would say frostbite. This is what happens when people are left out in the cold. Here's London, a beautiful city, trees, beautiful homes, people with a lot of wealth, but 2 things can be true at once. You can have that, yet at the same time, when you're going to bed in your nice bed, like I do,
Sure.
and you're cozy, you need to understand that there are people in this city who are so vulnerable that I would say we're close to third world conditions. And I'm trying to tell this story, and I'm trying to let people to see this story. I'm encouraging people to come out tonight, 6:15 at the Wolf Performance Hall, and I want you to see what is happening in this city when you go to bed at night and you close your door and understand that there are a vulnerable population.